All right, hello, eighth graders. So today we're going to do notes a little bit differently since I'm not here. So we're on page 12 in your note packet. So you should all have your note packets out and be turned to page 12. This is unit 4.4, which is dividing numbers in scientific notation. So yesterday we quizzed. On Monday, we multiplied numbers in scientific notation, and most of you thought that that was pretty easy. So we have the same objectives today, and today we're actually going to be focusing on this word divide, two numbers written in scientific notation. All right, so let's go ahead and flip to the very bottom of page 12 here. We have another fill in the blank. It's going to look really similar to the one we did on Monday with multiplying numbers in scientific notation. So for number 1, use the blank and blank properties to blank the factors. Here we're looking for the same two words that we've been using, commutative and associative properties, meaning it doesn't matter the order that you're multiplying in, so we can make these things look nicer and easier to work with. And that is to reorder the factors. Okay, so that's step 1 to dividing a number in scientific notation. Step 2, blank the decimal or number blank. Yes, on Monday we had multiply. Today we will divide the decimal number factors. And if you remember from last time, that's your C. For number 3, use the blank of blank rule. And today we are actually going to use the quotient of, I'm sure you can all guess, powers rule to divide the powers of 10. And in this case, if you remember, we actually subtract those exponents. So, for example, this is the rule we use. X to the a over x to the b equals x to the a minus b. So right here you can see that we're subtracting those exponents. And in this case, we're dealing with powers of 10, so your base will be 10. Okay, and that last blank. As needed, rewrite the answer in blank notation. Scientific notation. Okay, we should just be finishing up there. And when you're done, turn to page 13 in your notes. We'll do example 1. Example 1, if you can see here, says that we're going to divide. Write your answers in scientific notation. Okay, remember, for step 1, we're going to use the commutative and associative properties to reorder the factors. And then we'll be able to divide. So we're actually going to break this up into a negative 8 divided by 2. So we're dividing our C values here times 10 to the 12th over 10 to the 5th power. And we know that negative 8 divided by 2 is negative 4. And here we're subtracting our powers. So we'll get 10 to the 12 minus 5 power, which is negative 4 times 10 to the 7th power. And congratulations, you just divided your first two numbers written in scientific notation. Pat yourself on the back. Okay, some of you may be working ahead. I would say don't work ahead today. So we should all have our attention on letter B here. We're going to do this one next. It's written a little bit differently, but we know that this bar, division bar, and this division sign mean the same thing. So let's go ahead and write B just like how we did with A here. So we have 9.75, our two C values, divided by 1.3, and then we're multiplying I'll use blue, by those base 10 numbers. So times 10 to the negative 13th power divided by 10 to the 8th power. Okay, we're going to do the same thing. Go ahead and divide 9.75 by 1.3 and get your calculators out if you need. Go grab a little blue calculator on the side shelf there. So we have 7.5 times 10 to the, and we're subtracting still, always the numerator minus the denominator. And we can simplify 7.5 times 10 to the negative 21st power. And here we know that this number is going to be teeny tiny. Your decimal is going to keep moving to the left since your exponent is negative. Okay, go ahead and cross out letter C in your notes. We're going to skip that one. So let's go ahead and look at D now. We're going to do this the same way. This one's set up the same way as your last one. So we will take our C values, that 4 and that 5. We'll divide 4 divided by 5. And then we're multiplying by our base 10s. So times 10 to the 11th. And then we also have to divide 10 to the 11th by 10 to the 3rd. So here, 4 divided by 5, we get 0.8 times 10 to the 11 minus 3. That gives us 0.8 times 10 to the 11 minus 3. Gives us the 8th power. Now, you should be looking at this 0.8. Is that less than 10? Yes, it is. Is it greater than or equal to 1? No, it's less than 1. So we need to move our decimal back 1. This is different than multiplying. So since we moved our decimal back 1, we are actually 1 closer to moving it to the right 8. So we actually need to bring this down. So if you're going to the right 1 with your decimal place, you need to decrease your exponent. Okay, so now we are at 8 times 10 to the 7th power. And 8 is less than 10, and 8 is greater than or equal to 1. That is your final answer. So this one, you should know really well the way that we're moving our decimal and the way that we have to decrease our exponent. Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to skip E. I think that you should go back and do F after the lesson on your own. See if you can, if you understand what we went over well enough to be able to do F on your own, and then check with your shoulder buddy. So we'll skip that for now. Okay, so you should be flipping now to page 14 in your notes. We are going to look at letter A. This one is different. If you read your directions, it says approximate. My marker doesn't want to work here. Approximate how many times greater the first number is than the second number. So we're looking for kind of a sentence here. You should tell me how many times greater this first number is than our second number. So we already know it's greater. How many times? The way that we do that is we are going to divide 6.8 or 6 times 10 to the 8th, excuse me, by 2 times 10 squared. And I'm just going to use the X sign. Okay, so let's break it up, and we'll do this the same way we have been. Divide your C's first. 6 divided by 2 times 10 to the 8th divided by 10 squared. Okay, from there we know 6 divided by 2 is 3. And we'll subtract these exponents. Let's make a little note of that. Subtract. So we get times 10 to the 6th power. And now this number that you have is how many times greater? So this is 3 times 10 to the 8th times greater. That's maybe a little hard to understand. So I'm okay with you also writing this. So or, well, we can't really see that. Or We could actually multiply this out, moving our decimal 6 places to the right. So this is 3 followed by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And that is 3 million times greater. I will accept either answer. Either one of those. All right. Now that we've done one like that, I want you to circle and go back and do, let's see. I want you to try C. Now, make sure you pay attention to your directions, that it says approximate, how many times greater. So in C, you will get a decimal. And if you'd like, you could multiply it out. Your answer should be that many times greater. So now you know what you're working towards. Or you could leave this as 2.5 times 10 to the 6th times greater. Now, if this was let's say something like 2.8912, since we're approximating, we could round that up to 3 and say that this was 3 times greater. In the example of number 2, since it's 2.5, it's up to you whether you want to round it or write it just like this. Okay, so now let's take time for you to go back and do C on your own and compare with a shoulder buddy, as well as F from example 1 on your own, and then compare with a shoulder buddy. When you're done, quietly raise your hand, and the sub can come around and give you your worksheet. Thank you.